everyone, welcome back to my channel, Mental Health Over Coffee. Today's topic is in line with the beginning of schools. In August, we're talking about test anxiety. So grab your cup of coffee and join me. I'm sure you've been there where you were about to take a test and all of a sudden your brain goes blank. Or you're about to go take the test and you can't think of the answers. You know that you've studied, you've attended every single class, you've done your homework, but something happens as soon as you get into that chair and you forget everything. What happens when you blank out during a test has a lot to do with your response. Your anxiety response kicks in because now there's a worry. You're worried that you may not pass the test or something is going to happen, and maybe you're worried that you're going to fail the class. And so all of these things start going to your mind. You might start feeling a little bit anxious. Maybe your thoughts start racing. You don't even remember your name to put on the test. It's common, but I've got some tips for you. Test anxiety comes in 4 different forms. It's either physical responses, cognitive responses, behavioral responses, or emotional responses. So with the physical responses, you might start to get a headache, you might feel nauseous, you might start feeling your chest caving in, you might even start feeling extremely cold or extremely hot. With emotional responses, it's very similar to those experienced when you're having a panic attack. So you might start feeling really sad, really upset, you might cry, and you might start to feel helpless. With behavioral responses, you might be the kind of person that maybe bites their nails, or maybe you're fidgeting a lot, or you can't sit still, you're restless. One very common one with the behavioral response is avoidance. How many times have you skipped the class on test day because you thought you were going to fail the exam? And number 4, cognitive, it's when you start having those racing thoughts, when you start having those negative self-thoughts and you're saying, I'm going to fail the test, I'm never gonna make it, if I fail this test then I'll never get my degree, and you just spiral out of control. Well, today I'm gonna talk about a few tips and tricks to help you get through these times. The first thing that you want to do is you want to develop self-awareness. You want to start to know, when do you start feeling this way? Is it right before the exam? Is it during the entire class process? Is it only in certain types of classes like math classes or science classes? Or is it overall? Where are you in this process? Because if you notice that you only get this type of response before a math exam, then maybe that's an alert for you to get some tutoring or to pay extra attention in those classes so that you develop the skills that you need to reduce that anxiety when it comes time to test day. If it's not about a specific subject and you're just constantly anxious about tests, you want to ask yourself, what are the thoughts associated with that? So am I worried that I'm just going to fail the test and something bad is going to happen? Will I be down on myself if I fail the test? Will I feel like a failure? What are some of the concerns that you're worried about? So what are you worried will happen? That's really what you want to start to think about. So develop that self-awareness, see where your thoughts are coming from, and ask yourself, what is making me the most worried right now? Number 2, you really want to pay attention to that self-talk. So our minds and our bodies are more connected than you might think. So when you constantly tell yourself, I'm going to fail this test, I'm going to fail this test, we develop a body response to go along with what we're thinking. So we start to get anxious, and anxiety on test day is not good because then you're definitely going to go blank. So what you want to do is start to replace those thoughts. So if you've attended every single class and you have done all the homework and you've talked to your professor and you know the material and you still find yourself saying, I'm going to fail the test, it's time to replace those thoughts. So you want to say things like, I've attended class, I've done all my homework, I've done pretty well, so I will pass this class. Even if you don't feel like this is natural for you, even if you feel like this is hard because how can I possibly think this when I'm so nervous, you still want to go ahead and do that, because repeating that to yourself over and over again will prompt a different physical response and you will begin to feel calmer. Step 3, if you find yourself still engaging in those negative thoughts, I want you to challenge them. I want you to ask yourself, is there a reason why I'm feeling this way? Did I miss classes? Did I miss any assignments? Have I failed the test before and I just never got a chance to follow up with the professor? If there's something going on there and you still have time before the exam, then this is a good time to start reaching out to your professor, practicing or getting a tutor before exam day. But if you've done everything right, then this is when you want to challenge those thoughts. What would you say to a friend that's going through the same thing? Would you be hard on them, or would you say, oh, you're going to pass, everything's going to be fine? That's exactly what you want to do for yourself. A lot of times we're really compassionate when it comes to other people, but when it comes to ourselves, we're really rough on ourselves. So this point, you want to challenge that. You want to say, okay, you've studied, everything is fine, you've done well on the homework. If I was my own friend, then I would tell myself that everything's going to be okay. I always feel like I'm going to fail a test, but then I end up passing. So really go into your thoughts and start challenging them. Step 4 is preparation. Preparation is extremely important. Make sure that you're actually attending all your classes. Make sure that you're doing your homework assignments. Make sure that you're getting tutoring if you need tutoring, and asking friends. Creating study groups is a really good way to not feel alone. Sometimes your friend might know something that you don't know, and then vice versa, and you can really help each other. And it does help to have friends in the class. It just gives us an overall feeling of calmness. Study is extremely important. This is an important part of preparation. You want to study for about 45 minutes at a time. So I know a lot of people tend to cram the night before an exam, and that is just not good, especially if you get test anxiety. So the rule of thumb is to study for about 45 minutes and then take 30 minutes to an hour of a break. Yes, I know that sounds like a long time, but trust me, our brains cannot process information for longer than that. So try to take a 30-minute to an hour break, go outside, do something, talk to a friend, watch a movie, and then come back to studying. If you don't have that much time, then at least take a 15-minute break in between, because that is the way that you can guarantee that you will retain the most information. So I talked about self-talk earlier. You don't want to just do this on exam day. You want to constantly do this. So while you're studying, while you're in class, especially with material that you don't feel like you really grasp, you really want to talk to yourself and say, I will get this once I study. I am smart. I've passed other classes. I always pass the test, even if I don't pass with the best grades. So just continuously engage in that positive self-talk daily will make it so much easier on you on test day. Exercising is also another way to be prepared. When we're anxious and when we have test anxiety, it ends up being all this pent-up energy inside of us. So going for a run or a walk or play some sports, whatever sport you like to do, will really help get those jitters out. If you don't like sports and you're not really an active person, take a walk. Leave your cell phone behind, leave everything in the house, and just go outside and be with nature and just enjoy the time. Give your mind a break, give yourself a break, and just enjoy your time. Make sure that you're getting a really good night's sleep. So a lot of people cram the night before an exam, and that's just not good at all, because then you're tired, you wake up the next morning, probably forgotten a lot of the information because cramming doesn't really work. So now you're even more anxious. So what you want to do is make sure that at least a week before the exam, you're getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep every single night so that your body is well rested on exam day. And practice deep breathing daily. I know I talk about this a lot, and you will hear me talk about it in future videos as well. Practice deep breathing every morning and every night. The more you practice deep breathing, the more natural it will become for your body. So when you do need it in times of panic or anxiety, you'll be sure to be able to use it naturally without having to learn it during that time. The scariest part of test anxiety is exam day. So what do you want to do on exam day? Make sure that you're eating a healthy breakfast. Don't skip breakfast. Breakfast is extremely important to give you energy and make you feel good, and you definitely don't want to be hungry during your exam. So eat breakfast and have fiber and fruits and healthy things to get your brain working. I would definitely skip the coffee on exam day. Again, I drink decaf to reduce my anxiety. So decaf is fine if you really need that coffee flavor, it makes you feel good. I would also recommend some teas. So chamomile tea is extremely helpful because it calms your nerves down and it gives you that warm beverage that makes you feel fuzzy, and it's just something that is really soothing for a lot of people. So if you haven't tried it, go ahead, get some chamomile tea. It tastes really good, and it's really good for you as well. Make sure you arrive early to the test. There's nothing that will provoke more anxiety than feeling like you're not gonna make it on time. And if you have a professor that locks the door at a specific time, it's gonna make you even more anxious. So the best thing you can do is arrive early. That way you can review a few things. If the professor is there early, you can even have time to ask some questions, just last minute review before you take your exam. As soon as you get your exam, the first thing you wanna do is just skim through every single question. Don't start at question 1 and just start answering. So just skim through everything first. See how long the test is, see what kinds of questions are on there, and then go back, make sure you put your name on your test, and then start answering the easy questions first. So leave the ones that you feel are gonna give you the most trouble or are gonna take the most time till the end, and just start with the easy ones, get those out of the way. A lot of people feel like if they don't understand a question on test day, that's it, it's over, they can't ask anything, and that's not true. A lot of professors are open for questions during test day. They may not give you the answers or the steps, but they might clarify a question if you're not understanding what they're asking. Sometimes the way the test is worded may confuse you a little bit. Don't be ashamed to stand up, go to your professor and ask. One of the most important tips I can give you for test day is do not worry about anybody else. A lot of people really freak out because they look around the room and they see people working faster, see people getting up and turning in the test, and they freak out. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm not even close to being done. Just because they're finishing the test does not mean they even have the right answers. We don't know how much they've studied. We don't know if they're actually passing the exam, and everybody works at a different pace anyway. So take your time, focus on you, and it's a really good idea to take the entire time if you can. If you do find yourself finishing early, then you can go through and review all the answers. A lot of times when we first start taking the exam, we might feel anxious and we may have skipped a few steps or we may have forgotten something. So if you do have some time at the end of the test, take the entire time and go back and review it and go over it again. How many times have you turned in a test and then you got it back and you're like, oh crap, I knew that answer. And it's just because we rushed. So don't rush. Take your time and work at your own pace. If you're extremely well prepared, you've done everything that we've talked about, you've studied, you've talked to the professor, you've gotten tutoring, you've done deep breathing, and you're still feeling this way, then let's talk about things you can do during that test. So if you find yourself in the middle of the test and you're blanking out, take a deep breath, gather your thoughts, and try again. Sometimes it might even be a good idea to ask to go to the bathroom. Get up, talk to the teacher, say, I need to go to the bathroom for a minute. Take a quick little walk to the bathroom, get a drink of water. Sometimes just being out of that testing environment for a couple of minutes will really help your thoughts come back together. Another thing you can do is close your eyes for a minute and just remember all the positive self-talk that you've been engaging in. Remember that you had a good breakfast, you had a good night's sleep, that you've studied, you've gotten tutoring, that you knew the material yesterday. So there's no reason as to why you shouldn't know the material today. Sometimes, again, just getting yourself out of that little test, out of looking at it and just closing your eyes and re-engaging with yourself will really help you. And here's the big one, trust your intuition. A lot of times we look at an answer and we know that that's the answer, but we second doubt ourselves. This is not a time for self-doubt. Usually the first gut feeling that you get about an answer is probably the right one. Your brain is probably recalling it from something you studied or you heard. So trust your instinct at this time. Don't second guess yourself too much, especially if you tend to have a lot of test anxiety. If you've studied and you have done all your homework and you've attended class and you tried deep breathing and everything that we've talked about in this video, and you still are feeling a lot of test anxiety, talk to your professor or your advisor. All colleges and universities have some sort of resources and accommodations if you really struggle with this. Some teachers will allow you to take your test on a different day or in the testing center, or you might even get accommodations to have a longer period of time to take your test if timing is really what stresses you out. We are all different and we may require different things to pass and succeed, so don't be afraid to talk to your advisor or talk to your professor to see how they can better help you. Thank you for joining me today. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and leave comments below. I'd really like to hear your stories about how you've dealt with test anxiety in the past or any ideas of future videos that you would like me to talk about.